Going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Have At It, episode 115. My name's Ben Cornett, and we are live here on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015, as well as Facebook, on my Ben Zone Facebook page, uh, group page, I should say. Um, Long time no see, obviously. It's been a while since I've been on. Um, again, apologize for that. I know I keep saying that, but life gets in the way and you get busy and um, I try to find the time whenever I can. So tonight, luckily, I got some time to, hop on here and talk about uh the NFL draft. That was took place last week. Obviously, uh that time of year when we get all excited about who we're gonna select, who's gonna help our team out, the players that are going to come in and be with the team, with our team or whoever's team it is for the next few years, which player's going to, pan out, which player's not. Um, who do you like, who you don't like. So it's a very exciting time. And, we're going to take the time today to, review this on our episode, on this particular episode. So, overall, I thought the draft was, it's always exciting. It's always curious to, figure out, you know, if which team made the right choices. Obviously, you know, the one thing I don't usually do that a lot of, fans do is, you grade the draft. Oh, how do you grade what the Bucs did? How would you grade what the Raiders or the Commanders or the Cowboys or the Chiefs did? What grade do you give each player? I really don't do that because again, it's, these young men haven't even stepped on played an NFL game yet. So it's hard to tell, how good they're going to be in the NFL. Yeah, they were great in college, but the NFL is a totally different game. It's a faster game. So we just don't know until we see them on the field for you know, a good amount of time. Some players have to develop, some players have come in right away and had success. It doesn't happen with everybody, but it's happened before and it'll happen again. And, there's players that have to, develop. So, you know, we'll see how it plays out. My phone's ringing. Shoot. Okay. Give me 1 second. I will be right back. Hold on 1 sec. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Yeah. So, anyway, getting back to what we I'm talking about, with the NFL draft again. I don't do grades, because again, we just, um, yeah. I'm sorry, anything can happen on live TV. So let me um, All right. Sorry about that, guys. That was an important phone call. Obviously, life getting in the way, right? I know. I apologize. Man, no wonder I can't do a show every week. Anyway, let's get back on track. So, the NFL draft. Right now, we'll just talk about, you know, my team, the Buccaneers. Obviously, I thought overall, I'm not going to grade it. I'm going to grade it on what the Bucks did as far as needs, and I felt like they definitely got the needs. I had mentioned on the show previously, or I mentioned in chats that it was either going to, for me, I would say either get a key Messidor or trade down and get more picks. I felt like Messidor would have been a good fit for us. I know 25 is a big age, older, but has had some injuries. But my thing is, he can come in right away and be an NFL day one starter. Now, with that being said, um, that was when I didn't expect Ruben Bain to fall when where he fell. I mean, I would have thought he's going to be gone by he's not going to be in the top 10. He'll be out of the top. He'll be out of there by pick 10. So I never even thought about Ruben Bain falling that far. Well, he did, and that was pretty much a gift, for the Bucs. I'm like, oh, and I knew probably around pick 12 or 13, like he's still on the board. I'm like, whoa, because I believe the Ravens were the pick before us, and um, I did not see the um, the Ravens picking a defensive end. Now, I'm not saying they would have, but or I'm not saying they don't need one, but you already you signed Trade Hendrickson, so I'm like, okay, if Baltimore picks somebody else, then we got to pick Bain, right? It's a no brainer. You got to pick him, and the Bucks did. Very smart move. Um, as far as his, the knock on him has always been the short arms. For me, I look at it like there's players in the NFL that didn't have the biggest arms either. I mean, Micah Parsons comes to mind. Aaron Donald didn't have the you know the longest wingspan either. But you look at those guys. I mean, one's a future Hall of Famer with a Super Bowl, and the other um, has been a Pro Bowler and is with the Green Bay Packers. So uh, it, the short arms thing is not a big deal to me. Even if the Bucks didn't pick him, I'm still gonna say it's not a big deal. Whoever gets him, they're gonna get a very good defensive end who's quick off the line. He wins his one-on-ones, and the Bucks desperately needed somebody that can rush the passer. That's the problem. We've not had a consistent pass rusher in years, probably since JPP. So this was very important to address, and that's what the Bucks did. And even better that you can get a guy like Ruben Bain to fall in your lap like they did. You got to take advantage of it. Sure, Messidor would have been fine with me, but um, at the end of the day, if Ruben Bain's there, I mean, you got to take him. So I'm glad they did that. Um, because again, that's one of those things where sometimes players are going to fall. There's the incident with Ruben Bain who had that incident, that reckless driving thing. Unfortunately, it ended with the life being lost, but he was upfront and honest with teams, and the Bucks looked at it like it happened, but we're not going to overlook you for that. So good on Jason Light, and that's a great pick. And the Bucks, I think they're going to get a good one, in my opinion. Now he's got to prove it on the field, but it should be Ruben Bain should be starting, day one. I know they got Muhammad, in free agency. They're thinking about rotating him and Bain, but maybe the first game you do start Muhammad, but eventually Ruben Bain's going to start. So you don't draft a guy that high and not start him eventually. So we'll see how it plays out. Got some comments in here. Let's read those for a minute, and we'll get back to the draft. Corey King Brown says Bucks defense line: David Walker, Ruben Bain, Villa, Kalijah Cansey, Yaya Diaby. Yeah, it's going to be good, especially if Cansey can stay healthy. By the way, the Bucks picked up his 5th-year option. That's fine. But he's got to stay healthy as well. David Walker, I don't know. I'm not too high on him. He's got to show us something. If not, I think he'll be gone. But thanks, Corey, for tuning in, by the way, on Facebook. Tampa Bay Rays fan 2008 on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. How you doing tonight? Saying I wasn't a Messidor fan. I am happy with the Bain Jr. pick. Yeah, like I said, I wanted Messidor based because he was still the best defensive end available still. And Ruben Bain was not even on my radar because I thought he would be gone by the time we were going to pick. But if Bain wasn't there, I still would have went Messidor because, again, he can start day one. He's got the experience. I know people are afraid of the age, 25. But again, at this point, the Bucks need somebody to go in there day one to start. And again, Bowles' job's on the line this year. He's on the hot seat. He has to get it right. He doesn't have time to develop a defensive end. He's had several years to do that, and it hasn't worked. So I feel Messidor would have been a good choice to, start for the pick and then have him start day one. But with Ruben Bain being there still, definitely go get Ruben Bain. I would have preferred Ruben over Messidor. But again, I based it off, on my mock draft that Ruben Bain would have been gone already. So the Bucks again, fell in their lap, and it's great. So I'm happy with it. Corey King Brown on Facebook says, one sec. There we go. Dolphins pissed off draft Jacob Rodriguez. Bucks pick second. Yeah, I mean, that would have been nice to get Jacob Rodriguez in there, but Miami got him early. And speaking of round 2, the Bucks got Josiah Trotter out of Missouri, linebacker. That one, that's a solid pick, I think. He's also the son of Eagles legend Jeremiah Trotter. He's so the bloodline's there. A good linebacker who's a good run defender, by the way, can stuff the run. And you got Alex Alazone, next to him. You're never going to replace Levante, so but I feel like these two can, be pretty good in the middle of that defense. And the thing with me, the only concern with me is the sometimes in pass coverage, it's not great. He can get lost in pass coverage. But with Anazone there, that should help Trotter out a little bit, take the pressure off him. Then you still got Diaby, and they'll be fine. Again, I think this is a solid pick for the Bucks. They addressed that need, so I like it. Tampa Bay Rays fan 2008. Bain reminds me of Shaq Barrett 2.0. Yeah, I can see some of the comparisons. I think he's more talented than Shaq Barrett. Shaq had a couple good years, but then he kind of fell off the cliff. With Ruben Bain, you got a more talented guy who's faster off the line, can win his one-on-ones. Shaq didn't always win his one-on-one. Ruben Bain can. I think Ruben Bain's more talented than Shaq Barrett ever was. Shaq was good. He was really good. But we got to remember, too, that when we got Shaq Barrett, we got him on a bargain. He got 19 and a half sacks, but you got to remember, we also had a great defensive line with, Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, Jason Pierre-Paul. So I felt like Shaq Barrett benefited from I'm not taking anything away from Shaq, but it certainly helped that he had great defensive players on that defensive line, that was able to get to help Barrett, do his thing. And, I think with Ruben Bain, he's not going to have that luxury, but I think he's still going to do pretty good for this team. He'll still get his. I'm not saying he'll get 19 and a half sacks his rookie year. That'd be great if he did. But, again, um, with Muhammad there, they're going to split the reps for a little bit until Ruben can, be NFL ready at this level. So, yeah, it's a good comparison, but I would say there's more upside, more talent with Ruben Bain. Anthony Handy on Facebook. Anthony, how you doing tonight? Thank you for tuning in. He says, "What's good, brother? I'm good, man. Long time no see on this show." Let's see. What's good seeing you in the comments last night? Oh, thank you. Yeah, good show, by the way. You and Sean Spencer did a great job. You can catch those guys on Let's Talk Football. Yeah, that was wonderful. I like that show a lot. You guys did really good. Can't wait to see more of that. Jagniff production, much better. Facebook feed kept crashing. Actually, no, I had a phone call I had to take for aside I forgot being not being on the show for so long. I was looking at the buttons. Well, probably saw me talk on the phone for a minute there. I was kind of unprofessional of me. I apologize, but I think that's what happened more than anything. I don't think it was so much the Facebook feed, but it was just me and my personal business. And what's the deal, my guy? Yeah, just talking draft. NFL draft here. Can the Bucs handle the oncoming storm that is Cash Money Jones? Oh boy. Yeah, I mean the Falcons. We'll see. I mean, they didn't have a first round pick this year. I know they got a receiver, Zachariah Branch from Georgia. I'd have to look at their draft again. We'll see how they play out. They got Tua Tagovailoa, Michael Penix. See who's going to be the quarterback for that team. We'll see how it goes. Go Lightning. Yeah, they play Montreal tonight. Game 5, very pivotal game there. My Golden Knights play Game 5 tonight against Utah. Ruben Bay Jr. probably like Michael Bennett. I could see that. Maybe that might be a better comparison than Shaq Barrett, but they're both solid comparisons. All right. So just going over the list there. And by the way, thanks guys for commenting on the show tonight. Appreciate that. In the third round, we got Ted Hurst, wide receiver out of Georgia State. So I'd seen how some highlights of him. Again, I didn't really watch any Georgia State football this year, so I had to go back a little bit. Ted Hurst, 6'3", 240, 250, I believe. Athletically, he's great. He can get the ball. For me, one of my concerns, about players who play at smaller schools, they don't go up against, great competition. Not saying that Ted Hurst isn't going to make it in the NFL, but, he certainly is going to be going up against players that, played in the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12 in the NFL, so he's going to get some experience for sure. I mean, I don't hate the pick. I mean, you could use him in possession downs, red zone. I think when Bucs made this pick, I think they had a kind of a Mike Evans type of pick in mind, where he can, nobody's going to be like Mike Evans. Let's face it. But they feel like, we need that tall receiver that can, cause problems for the secondary when it's one-on-one matchups, especially in the red zone. You can go up and get the football. So I believe that's why the Bucs made that pick. They don't have those guys. They don't, Godwin's more of a possession receiver. Ibuka, same thing, with the speed, but they don't have that guy that, can go up in the air and get those 50-50 balls. And I felt like the Bucs made that pick specifically with Ted Hurst in mind. So again, you're not replacing Mike Evans. Let's stop with the comparisons. Mike Evans is one of one. You know, I use a biker gang term, the one percenters. That's what Mike Evans is. He's a one percenter. He's a rare breed. So, but if Ted Hurst can do, an eighth of what Mike Evans has done in his NFL career, I think it's a good steal for the Bucs. It's a good pick. It'll turn out to be a very solid pick. Chris Godwin was picked in the third round too. So, Lights had some success in the third round. So hopefully this turns out good. And, there shouldn't be really any pressure on Ted. He's going to be a rotational guy. So the Bucs, Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator, is going to be, he's got plenty of weapons to work with. Like I said, Ibuka, Godwin, Tez Johnson, Hurst now. So we'll see how it plays out. Oh, we got more comments in there. Zagnus says, no, not your feed, mine. Oh, okay. Okay. But I was on the phone. I had to interrupt for a minute. But yeah, thank you, though. Appreciate that. Tampa Bay Rays fan, 2008. Trotter was an okay pick. I prefer Allen. Yeah, CJ was solid too. I'm probably with you. I would have preferred Allen myself out of Clemson, but my only concern is the pass coverage. Not very good there. Hopefully, Alex Anzo and Diaby can help him out with that in the middle of the defense. Zagnev, really happy that the Birds finally sought out some homegrown talent. Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and again, we'll see how it plays out, Zagnev. I mean, the Falcons seems like every year they're supposed to be the best team in the NFC South, and then just hasn't worked out. We'll see what Stefanski does. With this team. Got to see what happens with James Pierce Jr. He may be facing a discipline with the NFL, so he may miss time for you guys. So and then you guys got who was it? I forget the name. But his brother got drafted to the Falcons too. If you can help me out with the name. So a pair of brothers are going to play together for Atlanta, so that's cool. Yeah. And then they figured out how to merge Tua and Penix. Atlanta might have one functional quarterback. Oh, there you go. There you go. That's the big issue is health. We'll see. Tampa Bay's Ray fan 2008. I like the Bucs traded up for Sharp, was available in the 7th round. Was meh. That's Bauer Sharp. It's an interesting name. It's a nice name, NFL name. Out of LSU, tight end. Athletic, very athletic. I think the knock on him was some of the drops. He did have a 7% drop rate. That would concern me a little bit. You don't want to see that, especially at the NFL level. They're not going to tolerate that. You're not going to get playing time if you drop the football. So, Bauer, hopefully, against 7th round pick. We'll see if he cracks the rotation, if he makes that a camp. Again, you got Kate Otten just re-signed. Peyton Durham, you got there. So I think you still got Devin Cope there. So we'll see how that plays out. And then, Keontae Scott, some interruptions again. I got a phone call. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. Once again, I apologize. Important phone call there. Man, see, that's why I can't do a show regularly. I get interrupted and stuff. I apologize. Let's get back to it. Hopefully, no more phone calls the rest of the way. Anyway, Christopher Cole on YouTube. Thanks, Chris, for tuning in. How you doing, buddy? So secondary, a lot more depth. Yeah. Speaking of that, we drafted Keontae Scott, Ruben Bain's teammate out of Miami, cornerback there. So uh, I, this is an okay pick for me too. I mean, he, solid coverage skills. Um, good tackler in the open field, so I like that. Good speed. So I'm good with this pick as well. And then we got DeMonte Copart, defensive back from Clemson. Some more depth, in there. And then I think what kind of surprised me in this draft is that we only drafted one offensive lineman, Billy Saruth. That's how you say it. Out of Notre Dame, offensive guard. Um, Solid. There was issues that he had some injuries. He missed a lot of games last year. Um, got him in the sixth round. Um, you know, I mean, I'm surprised that we didn't go after a more offensive lineman in this draft. Could have used more depth there. We had some injuries last year. We all know, guys missed a lot of time. Gedeke missed time. Cody Mock didn't play much last year. So, I would have thought maybe we could have gotten some more linemen in this draft. But, we, in the undrafted free agency, I think we picked up a couple there. So, hopefully we can get healthy there. That was the key. So again, only one draft pick, one lineman to draft in this particular draft. A little surprised there, but would have thought we could have drafted maybe another lineman, but it is what it is. Let's see. Get this one. And Tampa Bay Rays fan on YouTube saying Hurst pick is due to cater to Baker. He can't throw over the top unless it's a big wide receiver bailing him out. Yeah. I don't disagree. I mean, again, I said earlier that's what they had in mind with with this pick with Ted Hurst. Again, he's not Mike Evans. Nobody is. But, if he can use him in red zone situations, that'll help. He could draw flags, you know. But yeah, if Baker can get the ball to him, great. That's what Zach Robinson has to figure out, how he's going to use them on offense with his play calling. Should be a lot better than Josh Grizzard, I can tell you that. Although I feel like Josh Grizzard got thrown into the fire way too early, but Zach Robinson, good pickup, good OC. I think it'll help. But again, I think with this team's success offensively, for one, the offensive line has to get healthier. Again, Baker does have to play better, no doubt about that. I would wait for an extension if I were the Bucs, but sounds like the Bucs might be wanting to get him signed to a long-term deal. I would wait, but we'll see how that plays out. And they're still going to run the ball a lot, Hopefully, with the healthier Bucky Irving, Kenneth Gainwell coming to the Bucs now should help. Sean Tucker re-signed. This offense should be getting better as long as they're healthy. They should be definitely, in ball games. But the defense has to step up. Both sides of the ball has to be really good, in my opinion, for this team to get back to the postseason. So yeah, that's pretty much covers on the Bucs. I felt like, again, overall, I felt they addressed a lot of needs. I'm not going to do the grades because, again, haven't seen this team play, these players play in the NFL yet, so it's just can't really grade them right now. But as far as I can grade how they address the needs, I give them a A minus. The minus comes from the fact I think we could have drafted another offensive lineman for depth. Not the greatest draft for linemen, but I felt the Bucs could have drafted one. Maybe instead of getting a DeMonte Capehart, they could have drafted another offensive lineman there. But the other picks are fine. I love the Bain pick. The Trotter pick's solid. Ted Hurst is good. Keontae Scott, is a solid one too. So overall, I think the Bucs did pretty good. Now, if you're having issues watching the show on Facebook, I just did receive on StreamYard that they're having issues with that. So from Zagnif was telling me that he switched over to YouTube on Facebook. I apologize for that. So watch this on YouTube right now if you can't watch on Facebook. That's my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015. And yeah, we could real quick talk about the other draft picks from other teams. Obviously, Mendoza was the first overall pick again. The Raiders needed a quarterback. They're banking on him. The number 2 pick. Who was that at number 2? The Jets. They got David Bailey, Texas Tech. I like that pick. I think he's probably the best defensive end in the draft. Cardinals surprising everybody going with Jeremiah Love. I think they felt like that was the best player available type of pick. I think, it's kind of surprising because they still got, James Conner and they signed Tyler Algier. So you got to wonder there. I mean, picking a running back at 3, that's questionable. But then again, Jeremiah Love may be probably the best offensive player in the draft. So that's probably what they're looking at. The Titans went with the Cornell Tate out of Ohio State, wide receiver, which a little surprising. I would have probably thought they would have went with an Arvell Reese or a Sonny Styles, given that Robert Saleh is the new head coach. There's a defensive guy, but then again, they need a lot of help. They got Keldrick Falk at the end of the first round, so solid pick for that, for where he's at, talent wise. But Cam Ward does need a weapon, and Cornell Tate's probably the best wide receiver in the draft. So I don't hate it for them. That's a good one. I thought the Commanders getting Sonny Styles was good. Great linebacker. Dan Quinn, defensive guy. That should help their defense a lot. I think he's the best, most athletic defensive player in the draft. So good pick for them. So yeah, I mean, looking over at some of these picks, again, the Cowboys getting Caleb Downs. That's a good one. A safety from Ohio State. Cowboys defense is, especially with the trades they got last year, getting the guy from the Jets and, getting from Green Bay, forget what their names are, but so their defense is looking nice there. So overall, I mean, some teams made some good picks. Messidor went to the Chargers, by the way. So that was a good pick for them. With Khalil Mack, getting older now. I know he's back with the team, so this will probably be his last year, and that will help Akeem Messidor, help him get adjusted to the NFL game. Like I said, I think Messidor will be a starter day one. But I'm glad we got Ruben Bain. He fell right in our laps and we got him. So I am just fine with that. So with that being said, I think that's going to wrap it up here, but it felt great to be back on finally. Again, I apologize for not being on, just so busy right now. And as you can see, I also apologize for the phone calls I got. Very important, but had to take them. Wouldn't you know it, right when I was doing a show. So when I had the little time that I had to do this show, but again, it's great to be back here on show. Hopefully I get to do more of these shows. Can't tell you when I'm going to be on the next time, but it should be real soon. But I know that we're now going into the NFL schedule being released, coming out in mid-May. So definitely going to try and do a show on that because you got to know who the Bucs are going to play, how many primetime games they're going to get. And then we'll go over all the other teams' schedules and everything, what the Sunday night matchups are, the Monday night football matchups are, the Thursday night football matchups, the tons of international games we're getting this year. So that should be a lot of fun. But with that being said, everybody, I want to thank everyone, Zagniv, Tampa Bay Race fan, Christopher Cole, tuning in tonight on this show, Corey King Brown on Facebook. Again, apologize for the Facebook issues. That's unfortunate. Sometimes that happens. One more comment here, Christopher Cole. Trotter has a higher ceiling than Rodgers and Allen. Yeah, I could see that. Again, Trotter's good in with the run defense. The bloodline with Jeremiah Trotter as his dad. Always good to have that. So yeah, but anyway, guys, thank you, Christopher Cole, again on YouTube for tuning in, and everybody else that tuned in and watched the show. Appreciate it. And I will let everybody know the next time I come on. So everybody, take care, and I will see you next time right here on Have At It, episode 115. Thanks again, and take care.